What if what if the secret to financing this massive award-winning multi-million-dollar piece of futuristic architecture wasn't, a giant municipal tax hike?
Right. Or like a single billionaire donor just writing a blank check.
Exactly. What if it was actually just a neighborhood potato salad picnic?
I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but,
It really does. But welcome to the deep dive. If you're joining us today, you're probably someone who, loves seeing how the mechanics of our cities are changing behind the scenes.
Absolutely. The hidden gears of urban design.
Yeah, so today we're taking you to the city of Beaconsfield. We are looking at a local infrastructure project there that is completely redefining what a community center should actually be.
And they're doing so by challenging some very, very entrenched assumptions about urban design, about public funding and even about the architecture of human interaction.
It's wild.
It really is. We're looking at a project that isn't just about constructing a building, but actively constructing the social fabric around it.
Right, right. And to get to the bottom of this, we pulled together a really fascinating stack of sources for you today. We've got the official project overview document, which kind of lays out the grand architectural vision.
The big picture stuff.
Yeah, the big picture. And then we also have a community update that we translated from French, which gives us this raw, on-the-ground, grassroots perspective.
That's where you see the actual mechanics of the community.
Exactly. Oh, and I have to admit, we also have a rather amusing, heavily fortified digital footprint from the architectural firm's website. I will explain that one shortly, because it's pretty funny.
It's a great story. And honestly, it creates a really compelling contrast between like high-level architectural theory and the very granular reality of how a neighborhood actually pays for it.
Yeah. And the reason we are bringing this to you today is simple. Whether you're someone fascinated by regenerative architecture or, curious about grassroots community building.
Or maybe you just want to know how on earth a city gets its residents actively excited about a public library again.
Right. Because that's not easy. But this deep dive is your blueprint. We're going to look at how a building becomes a living, breathing part of its town. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Well, the foundation of this entire project rests on the physical reality of the space itself.
Okay.
Like, before we can even analyze the community forming inside the building, we have to understand how the building interacts with its environment.
Right. Because it's not just drop in a parking lot.
Exactly. In this case, the environment is Centennial Park, sitting right on the edge of Lake St. Louis.
And the geography there is a massive factor. I mean, the designers didn't just want a building that offered sweeping views of the lake. They wanted a building that acted as like an extension of the park itself.
It had to belong there.
Yeah. The structural focus is heavily tilted towards sustainability. The sources detail this massive wood structure, sprawling green roofs, rain gardens, and these sophisticated bioretention systems.
Plus, the orientation of the building was calculated very specifically to maximize natural daylight.
Right.
What's fascinating here is how this reflects a massive shift in modern architectural philosophy.
How so?
Well, for a long time, architecture was fundamentally about dominating nature, We paved over dirt to build structures that kept the elements out.
Like a fortress against the weather.
Exactly. But we are now seeing a movement toward biomimicry and regenerative design, and the Beaconsfield project actually won a 2025 WAN Award, that's the World Architecture News Award, in the Future Projects Commercial Building category.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, specifically for this approach. Winning a global award before the doors even open proves that integrating deeply with local ecology is, well, it's no longer just a nice public relations bonus. It is the gold standard.
I want to pause on that for a second, though, because when we read a term like bioretention system,
Yeah.
it sounds great on a glossy brochure, but what does it actually do?
That's a fair question.
Because reading through the project specs, I kept thinking of an analogy.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, a commercial structure is like a giant paperweight just dropped onto the earth. We pave the ground, put up steel, and when it rains, concrete gutters shoot all that dirty runoff straight into the municipal sewer system.
Yeah, right. Out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this Beaconsfield building acts more like a plant native to Centennial Park. It's actively breathing.
That is the core mechanism of bioretention, actually. Instead of treating rainwater as a nuisance to be diverted away, the building utilizes a designed basin filled with highly engineered soil.
Like engineered soil,
Yeah.
not just regular dirt.
No, not at all. We are talking about very specific layered ratios of sand, compost, and topsoil planted with deep-rooted native vegetation.
Okay.
So when a storm hits Lake St. Louis, the building directs the water into these rain gardens, and the soil acts like a giant coffee filter.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it traps pollutants, heavy metals, and oil, while the plant roots absorb the excess water. By the time that water naturally seeps back down into the local water table, it has been actively cleaned by the architecture.
That level of environmental inclusion is structurally ambitious.
Hmm.
I mean, it really is. And naturally, when I saw they won a Global Architecture Award for social inclusion and sustainable design, I wanted to see more.
Right, of course he did.
So I went to the website of the architectural firm behind this, LeMay.com. I'm clicking the link, ready to see their open, welcoming public spaces. And bam, I hit a digital brick wall
Oh no, you triggered the automated defenses.
aggressively. I was met with this intense Cloudflare anti-bot security check.
Just for trying to look at a library design.
Literally, it completely blocked my screen with this message, performing security verification. This website uses a security service to protect against malicious bots. I even wrote down the Ray ID they assigned to my rejection. It was AAI A-O-N-E 4938C9 to CA7.
Wow, you really kept the receipts on that one.
I did. I just find the irony so funny. Here's a firm designing a physical building whose entire stated mission is breaking down barriers and welcoming the community. But their digital bouncer is absolutely ruthless. You want to look at our airy, inclusive library? Prove you're human, bot.
That's hilarious, but it highlights a strange modern paradox.
Yeah.
Our physical public spaces are attempting to become more permeable and open, while our digital spaces are becoming these absolute fortresses.
That's so true.
But focusing back on the physical openness, that permeability has to extend past the green roofs and the rain gardens.
Which brings us to the interior. Because having an eco-friendly shell is great for the local water table, but it is completely useless if it doesn't serve the day-to-day needs of the people walking through its doors.
Right, the human element.
Exactly. The Beaconsfield project is attempting a very deliberate collision of different worlds inside this center. The interior features a modern library, exhibition halls, an event space, and a cafe bistro.
All standard for a cultural hub, yeah.
Right, standard stuff. But right alongside all of that, it features a digital fabrication lab, a fab lab.
Yeah, and the project document states that housing these specific spaces together fosters creativity, civic engagement, and intergenerational learning.
See, I need to push back on this premise, though.
Okay, let's hear it.
Anyone listening to this who has ever spent time in a library knows that a traditional reading space is historically defined by deep focus, quiet study, and analog books. A fabrication lab is the exact opposite of that.
It's definitely a loud environment.
You have 3D printers whirring, laser cutters grinding through wood, and people collaborating loudly over tech. I get the theory of visual proximity, but realistically, isn't the librarian going to spend all day shushing the teenager with the Dremel tool?
That's a funny image.
I mean, if I'm reading a biography, I don't want to hear a laser cutter. Doesn't mashing these up just create a massive culture clash?
This raises an important question, though, about architectural acoustics and spatial engineering.
Okay, lay some engineering on me.
The culture clash is intentional, but the sensory overload is mitigated by the design. You don't just put a table saw next to the reference desk.
Well, I would hope not.
Right. You use heavy acoustic glazing, you build glass walls that offer complete visual permeability without the audio bleed. You can look up from your archival research and watch sparks flying in the fab lab while sitting in pin drop silence.
Oh, I see. So it's about separating the acoustics while forcing the visual connection.
Exactly.
It reminds me of grocery store layouts, actually.
How so?
Supermarkets always put the milk at the very back of the store. It's forced circulation. You can't get your daily gallon of milk without walking past the bakery, the produce, and the end caps, which engineers accidental collisions with other products.
Right. You go in for milk and leave with a cart full of snacks.
Exactly. Here, the architects are engineering accidental collisions with other generations.
That is a highly accurate way to look at it. Traditionally, when you silo activities into separate, windowless rooms, you silo demographics.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The older traditional learners stay in the analog room. The tech-savvy youth stay in the digital workshop. But by placing analog knowledge right next to digital creation, you force a natural cross-pollination.
Huh.
The teenager printing a 3D prototype shares the same visual space, the same lobby, and the same coffee line at the cafe bistro as the retiree researching local history.
Right.
Organic mentorships don't happen because you put up a flyer for a seminar. They happen because you engineered the floor plan to make different generations literally bump into each other.
Okay, I buy that.
Okay.
But there's a glaring risk when you design a utopian space like this. You can force different generations into the same room with clever architecture, sure. But if the community feels like this multi-million-dollar project was just, dropped on them by the city council, they might resent it.
Absolutely. The us versus them mentality.
Yeah. So how do you engineer a sense of ownership? How do you make a community actually buy into a massive municipal project like this?
You refuse to just hand it to them. You make them actively participate in crossing the finish line.
Which is exactly what we see in the community phase of the fundraising campaign. According to the translated community update we have, the city sets a total fundraising goal for this specific campaign of $2 million.
A pretty substantial amount.
Yeah, and as of the update, they are already at $1.8 million.
And they are bridging that final gap using a very specific strategy.
Yes, the campaign is being driven by what they call Etsensel events, which translates to spark events.
Right.
And these aren't elite black tie galas where a politician asks a CEO for a massive check. These are intensely localized grassroots events organized by the residents themselves.
We're talking about community picnics, local art exhibitions, and used book sales.
Exactly. 12 different cultural and community associations have committed to hosting an event, and they've deployed a network of 40 community ambassadors to mobilize the neighborhoods.
The mobilization aspect is what makes this so effective. These ambassadors aren't just sending out generic mass emails, they are leveraging existing local social capital.
What do you mean by that?
An ambassador is often the person who already organizes the block party or, runs the local youth soccer league. They are tapping into networks of trust that the municipal government simply doesn't have access to.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Think about the scale of the paradox here. We just spent the first half of this deep dive breaking down a state-of-the-art, WAN award-winning piece of sustainable architecture with bioretention systems and a digital fabrication lab.
A very high-tech endeavor.
Right. It's a highly technical, massive undertaking. And yet, instead of a city quietly issuing a municipal bond or raising local taxes to cover the final $200,000, they are relying on neighbors selling used paperbacks and potato salad. Why?
Because the financial goal of that final $200,000 is merely a vehicle for a psychological goal.
Oh, wow. Okay, unpack that.
Well, if a city simply taxes you and builds a cultural center, you might appreciate it, but you view it as a transaction, a service provided to you by the government, the building belongs to them. But when a resident volunteers as an ambassador, or when a family spends a Saturday baking cookies to sell at an Etsensel picnic,
Yep.
It fundamentally changes their relationship to the structure.
It's like the IKEA effect applied to urban planning.
Yes, exactly.
We place a disproportionately high value on things we assemble or build ourselves. The sweat equity creates the attachment.
Precisely. It shifts the psychology from consumption to ownership. When you buy a $5 book at a local sale, and you know that money bought a literal piece of the green roof or a pane of acoustic glass, that building becomes yours.
Yeah.
This grassroots funding strategy is the ultimate insurance policy for a city. It guarantees that the space will be fiercely protected and highly utilized from day one because the community poured their own labor into its foundation.
They are building the community ties before the concrete is even poured. The act of funding the building is what creates the community that will ultimately inhabit it.
It also ensures that the transition from the old community center to this new high-tech hub doesn't alienate the longstanding institutions in Beaconsfield.
That is a critical point. A lot of towns face intense backlash when they try to replace a beloved, albeit maybe outdated, institution with something shiny and new.
People fear their history is being erased.
Exactly. But the documents highlight a major endorsement that combats this. The Friends of the Beaconsfield Library, a local organization, made a massive $50,000 donation to the campaign.
That is a profound signal of unity from the exact demographic that might traditionally oppose a modernization project.
Yeah. Their board released a statement that frames their donation perfectly. They said the library has always been about gathering people around knowledge, reading, and culture.
The core values haven't changed.
Right. Rather than feeling threatened by the digital fabrication lab or the modern event space, they see the new center as a direct extension of their historic vision. They are actively encouraging other organizations to follow their lead.
That $50,000 donation basically bridges the gap between the town's history and its future. But the city also had to figure out a way to memorialize the individual residents, too. The people at the picnics and the book sales.
Right, because if these spark events are the active way people are getting involved today. How does the city ensure that momentum isn't forgotten in 5 years?
Right.
Well, they are doing it through a feature called the Community Wall. It's designed to be a permanent installation inside the project, allowing donors of all sizes to leave a lasting mark on the history of the center.
A literal wall of fame.
Yeah. And for anyone wondering how a city coordinates all this, the update notes that further resources and ways to get involved are continuously updated on the city's official website. So what does this all mean?
Yeah, let's bring it together.
When you look at the $50,000 donation validating the library's evolution, and you look at a wall dedicated to the people who bought potato salad to fund a fab lab, it proves that the analog ethos of a community isn't being replaced by a soulless tech hub. It's being amplified.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it requires us to look at the architecture of this building in two distinct ways. We spent a lot of time analyzing the physical structure, the sustainable timber, the green roofs, the rain gardens catching the runoff. That is the physical engineering.
Right.
But the community wall is the manifestation of the social engineering we've been discussing. The building's roof is supported by wood, but its institutional survival is supported by the names etched on that wall.
Oh, I love that.
One holds up the ceiling and the other holds up the civic engagement. A truly sustainable public building demands both forms of structural integrity.
The physical beams and the social beams working in tandem. That is such a great image
Yeah.
to bring it all home for you listening today. We started by looking at a city that decided to completely rethink the dusty old concept of a community center. Beaconsfield designed a globally recognized, hyper-sustainable structure, filled it with everything from ancient archives to laser cutters, engineered it to force different generations into the same visual space, and then they funded it using the most old-school grassroots methods imaginable.
It is a remarkable synthesis. They are using high-touch tradition to finance a high-tech future.
It is a brilliant playbook. And it's absolutely something to keep in mind the next time you see a new public works project announced in your own town or city. Look past the glossy architectural renderings and the promises of sustainability.
Yes, look at the mechanics.
Look closely at how the project is being funded and structured. Is it just a top-down mandate where the city council does all the work behind closed doors and just hands you a finished product? Or is there a spark campaign?
Exactly.
Are they engineering ways to make you and your neighbors the actual stakeholders before the doors ever open? Because as the Beaconsfield project shows us, how a building is paid for dictates how deeply it will be loved.
It dictates the initial love, certainly. But it also leaves us with a critical challenge to consider.
Oh, what is that?
Well, once this beautiful, sustainable center finally opens its doors and the initial excitement of the ribbon cutting fades, how does a community maintain that spark? 10 or 20 years down the line, does that community wall remain a living testament that inspires the next generation of residents to engage? Or does it slowly fade into the background, becoming just a list of names that people blindly walk past on their way to grab a coffee at the bistro?
Oh, wow.
The architecture and the funding can set the stage perfectly, but the long-term vitality is entirely up to the people inside the walls.
That is a phenomenal question and definitely something to chew on the next time you walk into your own local library, town hall, or community center and look at the names on the donor plaques. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this gave you a new lens through which to view the buildings and the communities around you. Keep exploring, keep asking questions about the hidden mechanics of the spaces you inhabit, and we will catch you on the next one.